Good morning, everyone. I am Larissa Kotke. I'm the president and CEO of Leadership Greater Hartford, and I am so thrilled to see you all this morning. I slid my way into the office in icy Connecticut, but we are grateful for you to be starting the day with us. This Lessons in Leadership series is one that's been going on for about 17 years now. Since 2010, Lessons in Leadership has been a unique way for our network to come together for continued development and relationship building. It used to be in person, and this morning I'm grateful it's not. So it's nice to see you all on Zoom rather than trying to slip our way into a same space. But this is one of my favorite events each year. This is sort of a mashup between a book club, leadership training, and virtual networking. This series really gives us a chance to engage or re-engage around a timely issue by drawing on LGH's human-centered leadership approach, insights from a dynamic author, and the diverse perspectives of those of you in the room. So that's you all. This doesn't work without all of you. This year, with the many challenges that are facing our communities, Brene Brown's newest book, Strong Ground, was really an easy choice for our staff to select. It's our hope that you will read along in the book with us. But if you haven't purchased it yet, if you aren't listening to the audiobook, please know that reading the material is not required for participation. Each of our guests and facilitators will use the concepts and themes of the book really as a catalyst for conversation, so there will be plenty of time for sharing and learning, whether or not you're on the same chapter with us. By now, I imagine that most of us are very familiar with virtual norms, but before we dive into today's presentation, I wanted to highlight a few of them. Lessons in Leadership is designed to be interactive. So we will have facilitated breakout rooms later, and we hope that you'll have your cameras on, especially for that portion, and participate as much as you're able to. We also invite you to rename yourselves on Zoom to reflect your name, your professional affiliation, preferred pronouns, or any other information you'd like us to know. And as you've already started to do, we encourage you to utilize the chat throughout the program this morning. Feel free to introduce yourselves to other participants who are here and chime in along as Peter goes through his presentation. We do have everyone muted through the bulk of the presentation this morning, but when you go into your breakout rooms, you'll be unmuted. But if you have any technical difficulties along the way, please send a chat note to the Leadership Greater Hartford account that is being staffed by our Brittany Bettis-Allen, who's behind the scenes helping to make sure everything is going smoothly. And because some of us talk fast, we've enabled closed captioning this morning. So if you'd like to have a live transcript of everything that's being said, you can click on the CC icon on the bottom of your screen, and it will provide that live time transcription. Before moving on, I'd like to stop and thank our series sponsors, both CIL and CREC. Today's session and the entire series would really not be possible without the investment of these two partners. For those who don't know, CIL is a Hartford-based 501c3 nonprofit real estate developer and community partner that's focused on creating and sustaining accessible, supportive housing and community resources for people with disabilities and other long-term support needs. They are longtime partners and friends of LGH, and since their founding, CIL has partnered with service providers and communities to expand inclusive housing options, improve independence, and enhance the quality of life through development consulting, accessibility improvements, and innovative community investments. And in the past few years, they've expanded well beyond the boundaries of Connecticut and are sort of taking over the nation by storm. Capital Region Education Council, or CREC, is a regional education service center serving more than 30 districts in Greater Hartford, providing a wide range of high-quality programs and services that support students, educators, and families. CREC's work includes professional development for educators. Many of you are in the room with us today. Operation of tuition-free interdistrict magnet schools, customized educational programming, and collaborative services that advance equity, excellence, and opportunity for learners of all age. To learn more about CIL or CREC, please visit their websites. We will drop that into the chat. And also, you'll get to meet a couple of their colleagues in the next couple of weeks as they welcome you to the series. Again, thank you to our friends at CIL and CREC for your investment and longtime support of LGH. We're also excited to recognize our visionary sponsors as seen on the screen. These are partners who've invested in our year-long alumni engagement events, which includes Lessons in Leadership, as well as a variety of other events we'll be hosting. So if you're someone from one of our sponsoring organizations, please give a wave, say hello. And if your organization or company is not listed up here and would like to become a visionary sponsor of LGH, please email me, please reach out so we can design a sponsorship package that's meaningful to your company. And we hope that you join us. If you've not already been connected with us on social media, we want you to do so. We are posting things all the time. This is one of the best ways to stay on top of what's happening at LGH and ways to engage in our community. So please join us on any one of these channels. And we hope that you'll connect with us frequently after today's session and help promote the remainder of the series to your friends and colleagues. For this morning and for the next 4 weeks, we want you to be able to join us for all 4 sessions of the series. Really, the live time conversations in the breakout rooms are always one of the most sort of powerful components of this series. However, if you can't attend all 4, if there's one you have to miss, please make sure that you register for that individual session as well, because we will send out recordings of each session to all registered attendees after the fact. As you can see, we have a great group of LGH friends who will be sharing their talents and gifts with us throughout the series, drawing upon Brene Brown's wisdom of what it truly means to lead from strong ground. These are dynamic and talented facilitators who will be sharing their insights while pulling themes from the book. And now, I've talked for plenty long enough. It is my great pleasure to introduce today's presenter and, get to see my headshot on the screen. But more importantly, we are excited to feature Peter Callahan. He is, my screen just changed. He is a professional certified coach, a facilitator, and he's also the director of learning and development here at Leadership Greater Hartford. Peter believes in bringing more love and effectiveness into leadership, and he empowers leaders to navigate business and interpersonal challenges with compassion and courage. He's been with us for a little over a year. We've known him longer than that, and that is so true day in and day out with Peter. He has over 15 years of learning and development experience, in which he focuses on creating the space for professionals and teams to gain clarity, foster connection, and create shared accountability. His experience includes diverse leadership roles across multiple industries, including Fortune 500, small business, and nonprofits, where he's led teams and driven transformative initiatives. He's highly committed to his own personal and professional growth. He is a 40 Under 40 award winner and has served on various nonprofit boards. We've known Peter for a long time. He's been a longtime LGH community member, but just officially joined the team a little over a year ago. He's attended many lessons in leadership sessions over the years. He's a proud 2020 graduate of our Quest program. And along with a bachelor's degree from the University of Rhode Island's Business Management program, Peter also holds various certifications in coaching, leadership, and mindfulness. He is a trusted resource in this space, but he's also a whole human. He loves to read and spend time outdoors with his wife and 3 kids in Naugatuck, Connecticut. And with that, Peter, we are excited to have you guide us today. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Theresa. Let's see if I can take over the screen here. There we go. All right, is it sharing mine, Larissa?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right, good morning, everyone. So glad to be with you all. I love seeing the room fill up. So many familiar faces and new faces, and yeah, grateful to be with you all today. So, like many of you, I spent many February evenings snowed in and watching some of the most growth-minded, persistent humans in the world show us what the relentless pursuit of your potential can look like. The Olympics remind us of something essential. Behind every moment of glory are years of practicing the fundamentals. So core strength, balance, repetition, ground. Athletes don't build speed on dysfunction. They build power on strong ground. And leadership is no different. So here at LGH, we define leadership as values-driven action that helps people and communities thrive. Values-driven, intentional action. So our core question for today is, who am I as a leader, and what do I stand on when things get hard? So what's the first step in making your actions values-driven? Awareness, knowing what your values are. And in the majority of our trainings, whether it's a retreat with a board or a senior leadership team, or a 6-month leadership academy our 10-month Quest class. Woo! We start developing self-awareness through assessments like the Enneagram, which is our go-to assessment still, but we now have access to so many others, including DISC, 16 types, Clifton Strengths. But we also love to start with a values exercise where each participant reflects on and writes down their values to help start off their leadership development plan. So Brené Brown, in her powerful new book, Strong Ground, outlines that values-driven action requires something to stand on. And thinking of these Olympic athletes, do they just show up to training each day saying, I'm just going to keep playing and hope I get better today? No, they break down their chosen craft into its component parts and work on those one at a time, intentionally, and almost always with a coach. So as leaders, how often are we just showing up to work each day, not really thinking about the skills of our chosen craft that we might be utilizing or what we want to focus on to get better at today? How many of us are investing time or resources to create a development plan or work with a coach who can give us useful feedback and create caring accountability? Leadership is full of component parts. We just don't always think about it that way. And each of them can be honed and improved and put back into the whole, just like an athlete does. So I'm really grateful to be together with you today to share how Brené's decades of research and experience, including offering her Dare to Lead work to over 150,000 leaders, can help us identify the most impactful mindsets and skill sets to empower us to move toward becoming Olympic level leaders. So let's dive in. So first, there's one Olympian that I personally have a lot in common with. Well, okay, I have at least one thing in common with. Michael Jordan and I were both cut from our high school basketball teams. Fun fact. And the question was not who is the best natural athlete. I think that's pretty clear. But the most important question was who wanted it more? Who had the clarity of purpose to propel them forward? Who could commit to the grit and persistence of practice? So in this case, I guess I'll give that to Michael. He won a gold medal in 1984 when the Olympics were here in LA. Not that we're in LA, but this country. And another gold medal with the Dream Team in 1992 in Barcelona. I personally decided I might have more of a build for the business world. But if MJ had not developed his strong ground to stand on, he and I would likely have the same number of gold medals. Right? So here at LGH, we start to grow leaders utilizing many evidence-based and human-centered models for effective leadership. The Leadership Challenge, Clifton Strengths, so many wonderful thought leaders out there, including Brené Brown. Many of those we've consolidated into the 3 pillars of effective teams, each of which Brené references in so many different ways throughout the book. And so under these pillars, we can break human-centered leadership down into its component parts, some of which include relationship building and trust building, connecting our individual values and purpose with our shared values and shared purpose, documenting and consistently referring back to requests and commitments, really prioritizing, remembering the platinum rule. So some of you have heard of this, but many others, it's still new, the platinum rule, which is really doing our best to communicate and treat others in the ways that work best for them, not just for us. And there are so many more. But in order to improve, we have to find our ground. We have to bring more awareness and intention to our actions. And while some of these skills are hard, most on their own are not complicated. We can choose to pull out one skill at a time to practice. None of us is born an Olympic level leader, but some of us heed the call to go for gold. Brené's sport of choice is pickleball. And in the book, Brené starts by talking about writhing in pain from an injury playing pickleball. And I really like what she says, so I'll quote her a few times. So Brené starts with, let's get this over quickly. I was on the pickleball court. And if you're pumping your fist in the air and saying, awesome, I love pickleball, let's go, keep reading. If you're thinking, give me a break with pickleball already, Well, you can take some satisfaction in knowing that it almost killed me. And a shitload of other people who over 50 who have rekindled their competitive spirit and suffered through multiple appointments with physical therapists and orthopedic surgeons worldwide. End quote. So she uses this example in working with her trainer, Tony, after her injury, whose style is like the kind, strategic, tough coaches in all the feel-good sports movies that we love. So while Brene wanted to triage whatever she needed to really quickly to get back out on the court, Tony emphasized how essential it is to work on the fundamentals and build a strong foundation, not to build on dysfunction. Find the ground, Brene, he kept saying. So how many of us have ever tried to start a new habit, launch a new initiative, improve our workplace culture without strengthening the foundation? So I'm just going to ask you to reflect just for a moment. When have you tried to add intensity instead of building strength? What's a moment that comes to mind? So often in our culture, we're incentivized for efficiency, right? To move as quickly as we can. And certainly sometimes in some ways that's called for, but other times there's really an opportunity to slow down and check back in. So in chapter 2 of Strong Ground, the title is simply Tush Push. So this is also known as the brotherly shove. This is another sports metaphor for what can happen when a team comes together, with each member finding their own strong ground and moving forward toward one goal with vision and discipline. These are the teams we yearn to be a part of. The camaraderie, the connection, and the clarity of purpose that we can feel is invigorating. Brene also references Newton's 3 laws: inertia, force equals mass times acceleration, and action and reaction, calling it Newtonian teamwork. She says our strong ground is made up of 2 elements. First, our own footing, including our values, a clear sense of our contribution, our purpose, our curiosity, and our humanity. And number 2, our connection to another person or group of people who are also grounded. In Newtonian teamwork, she says, everyone must be responsible for understanding that it's the strength of the team that makes winning possible. And conversely, the cost to the entire team when individuals lose touch with their ground. As you can see, this really maps beautifully with our 3 pillars as well: psychological safety, shared purpose, and those clear expectations. And ultimately, strong ground is not softness. It's disciplined, intentional connection to each other and to what matters most. So in many of our sessions, we come back to this line from the Navy SEALs really often. And it honestly just encapsulates everything we've been talking about so far. And what the SEALs say is, under pressure, we don't necessarily rise to the occasion. We typically sink to the level of our training. I think about first responders who are interviewed after a crisis, and people ask, like, what made you run into that building or, save that person? How did you kind of summon that courage? And they say, I don't really know. My training kicked in. This applies in every realm, including our workplace and leadership life, as well as at home. And being a calm, patient, confident leader is much easier when things are going smoothly, right? But what do we have to draw on when things get hard? Not only do we need to be aware of our purpose and our values, but we need to be able to remember them when it matters most. We've got to find some time to practice. So another translation for the Pali word sati, which we most often see translated as mindfulness, another translation is actually the word remembering. So sometimes when you hear people say mindful, some of us have that resistance to mindfulness. I can't stop my thoughts. It's not something I can do. Really, it's just about remembering who we are, remembering what's important to us, remembering what we want to do when things get hard so that we can find our ground. So back to the pickleball injury, Brene was trying to strengthen her core, but for months she could not find the ground. So she kept trying to remember by saying to herself, strong ground, Brene, strong ground. But she still just couldn't find it. And I really appreciated that Brene shared in the book that she had resisted mindfulness and meditation for many years. But similar to me, after reading so many times about how validated training our attention or mindfulness is by science, and how many of the leaders that so many of us respect and admire have developed some type of consistent mindfulness practice, some consistent way of reconnecting with themselves and remembering who they are and what really matters. So she made the commitment to practice and has not looked back. So while practicing with more awareness, she eventually was able to access a new type of strength by connecting her body to the universal source, the ground. She could finally feel the connection. So maybe some of you have heard of Jon Kabat-Zinn. He comes from UMass Medical School. He was a microbiologist who opened the stress reduction clinic at UMass Medical for patients who doctors just couldn't help reduce their pain. They didn't know what else to do. So go see the weird hippie scientist guy. And so eventually he created this 8-week protocol called mindfulness-based stress reduction. That's probably the reason that we're all even referencing mindfulness today. This was over almost 50 years ago now. And his definition, the way he defines mindfulness, is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally, in the service of self-understanding and wisdom. So personally, I also really struggled to develop a meditation practice for several years until I started listening to some mindfulness teachers and some podcasts, and I realized I didn't have to stop my thoughts. I'm a thinker. There's a lot that are coming in. But actually what I've learned is that training our attention is simply about choosing an anchor, a focal point, and then coming back to it again and again. And these are the reps that actually build this essential muscle of our attention. It's not about being perfect or getting it right. It's about noticing when our mind wanders and gently bringing it back with compassion and self-compassion, not, I'm supposed to be better at this. Why am I so bad, right? It's that gentle tenderness is so essential. So now personally, I've been practicing for around 10 years, have gone through some teacher training myself, and have been on several week-long silent meditation retreats. Not for the faint of heart. But I also like to start many of our sessions and leadership trainings with some basic, and I often leave the term mindfulness or meditation out as some people have resistance. So I usually call it, can we all just come together and do a bit of centering? Or let's have a quick arrival practice, because just like today, we're all coming from whatever our morning looked like. Amazingly, we were able to put on our pants and get here in front of the computer. Maybe you didn't, but you're here in front of the computer. And it's a miracle in some ways that we're all here together. And so my invitation, and usually I do this a little bit earlier, but fits in here. So I just want to give us all a quick experience of doing this, because it's really easy to learn about these different practices, but let's actually take a moment to do it together. So that's my invitation. So if you're willing, I'll just guide a couple of invitations, instructions, and you can, yes, there we go. I see Carol, Rosemary, people are settling in. Excellent. We've got some experience. My first invitation, there's nothing you have to do. Really, all we're doing is, in some ways, answering these two fundamental questions that we often come back to in our trainings as well. How am I doing, and what do I need? We're just often moving so quickly that we're not checking in on these things. And Brene highlighted, it took her months to really slow down internally enough, and we can even do this while we're doing things, but to check in and really connect with our body and the ground. So, assuming most of us are sitting, I'll just invite us to sort of sit comfortably and alert as much as you can. We can actually not look at the screen if we want to. I promise I won't change anything. Nothing's gonna happen. And just see if we can bring our attention inward even a little bit. Often taking a few deeper than normal breaths can be really helpful. Seeing if we can just pay attention to the sort of expansion and contraction. We do this with kids sometimes, and this, can you feel your belly filling up like a balloon, letting it out a bit? I often say to my kids, let's smell the flowers and blow out the birthday candles. Even just that in a moment of stress or chaos can let our nervous system know we're okay. It can just help us settle and ground a little bit. The next step can be to check in with whatever thoughts we may have, just noticing the stream of consciousness. We can even thank our brains, like, thanks for thinking of all these things that keep me going right now. There's nothing we have to do. Maybe noticing any emotions that are happening, and you can even feel your sense of sort of weight, that sense of gravity in your chair, maybe your arms resting wherever they are, your body pressing down against the chair. And one of the most sort of useful resources for many of us can actually be the feeling of our feet pressing down against the floor. Maybe sensing into the feeling of rootedness or groundedness to the earth. Always here to support us. So we've got our own internal strong ground, and then we've got the real physical ground that's always here beneath us. So maybe just taking a few more intentional breaths together. And thank you all for being willing to just check in with yourselves. And these are the practices, right, that can create so many ripples into the rest of our day, the next person you interact with, how you write your next email. Right? Just slowing down to check in has so much ROI, right? Return on investment. And I love what one of Brené's other trainers said to her at some point. They said, recruit the right muscles for the job, one of which might be our attention, train them, and use them with intention. Right, so it applies internally and externally. And in leadership, the right muscles are not necessarily urgency and intensity. More often, they're awareness and connection. And unfortunately, there are no shortcuts. As Brené puts it, there is no app for transformation. When you're trying to what we're trying to achieve will require a deep, broad, and disciplined commitment to individual change, team change, culture change, and systems change. And Brené admits that she often reacted sort of and reached first for tools you can purchase or slick external resources that might save her the time and energy consuming work of transformation. Some of that investment might include accurate problem identification. We've heard the Einstein quote, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes identifying the problem, 5 minutes solving. Space and time, as we're saying, right? Slowing down, not necessarily to a crawl, but to the appropriate amount of time to give to get to those problems. Having brave, as we often call them, or uncomfortable conversations, right? Some sort of different practices that may come up. Different mindset shifts, ways of looking at things, and of course, systems examination. Basically, she says we all have to resist the magical thinking that there's a suite of tools that will bring about big change and require less time, less determination, and less discipline than the work necessary to produce meaningful, lasting change. Unfortunately, the cognitive and behavioral lunges and squats await. There is no app for transformation. And Brené acknowledges that for most of us right now, the thought of slowing down to do anything can be paralyzing. But at the very least, we should be building new capabilities while at the same time doubling down on core stability and functional strength. Right? We can carve out moments of time. 1 minute counts, right, to check in and practice and do these things. But ultimately, she says that means investing in people. Because for organizations, people and our connection to each other are the strong ground. Gold medal performances are built on relentless fundamentals. So next, I had to include these barriers that Brené outlines. They just resonated so much with me. And she speaks to really hearing a lot of folks struggling. She says many of us are in deep struggle, especially young employees, folks struggling with health issues, and those of us sandwiched between caregiving for children and aging parents. Collectively, so many of us feel disconnected, distrustful, and emotionally dysregulated. And the disconnection, she says, is from our inherent human wisdom, our poetry, our joy, our innate creativity, our yearning for connection, collaboration, and innovation. And she says it stems from at least 3 convening forces. And again, these just rang so true for me that I wanted to read them to you. So number 1, she says, despite overwhelming data warning us about the detrimental impact on people and performance, there is still pervasive adherence to the type of fear and shame-based rank and yank leadership that permeates many organizations and currently holds political center stage in many countries. Our hardwired reflex to these types of sort of cultural behaviors are basically to self-protect, right? By separating ourselves from our bodies. That's why that mindfulness practice can be so uncomfortable for many of us. We're just not used to checking in from our humanity and from one another. We disengage, perform to plan rather than potential, take no risks, and check out. Or perhaps worse, we engage in the brutality of processing our fear by taking it out on others. It's a big part of why I do this work. There are so many leaders who are not aware of what's happening in themselves. And there's this idea, pain that isn't transformed is transferred, right? Hurt people hurt people. And it's really hard to see so many workplaces where that's happening. Not intentionally, but consistently. Number 2, Brene says, there remains a strong belief that vulnerability is weakness and that what makes us human is counter to high performance and impact. Again, this methodology has been dispelled by research, including her own, but we seem not to want to accept that vulnerability, which she defines as the ability to recognize and regulate the emotions we experience during times of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And I've got that kind of definition on my mind now, right? There is no courage without vulnerability, and vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Something most of us experience many times a day. This is the source code for courage. There is no courage without vulnerability, and there is no uncertainty, risk, or if there is no uncertainty, risk, or emotional exposure, we're not being brave. We're just showing up. So lastly, her last sort of factor here is the false dichotomy still persists that leaders can either invest in training and coaching specifically developed to increase performance, revenue, and growth, or they can invest in cultural initiatives and coaching that result in more courageous, connected, and collaborative human beings. She says, if this feels like your ROI dilemma, I kind of love this line, I suggest you back away slowly from the quarter-zipped consultant with the 200-slide deck. No offense, Lily. Fully alive, well-supported, and connected human beings are unstoppable. And this is really where the thrill of victory meets the agony of defeat. We need to stay focused on being good at being human. So one of the other ways we do this, and this is kind of the last thing I'll really touch on here, is that in chapter 4, Brene references how essential acknowledging paradoxes are and how incredibly tenacious they can be. Humans get so uncomfortable, myself included, straddling the tension and uncertainty that surfaces when 2 seemingly opposing ideas are both valid. I've heard this line before, the only way to know if something is true is if it can be described by paradox. But so often, we simply give up, right? We let go of the tension and just pick one idea, normally the most familiar one, and make ourselves feel better by discounting or diminishing the competing idea and or the idea holder. Right? And we're all guilty in some ways of doing that. The gift of paradox is that if we hang in there and tolerate the tension, grounding down and holding both ideas, a new and deeper level of understanding can be born. One example she gives is the paradox of freedom and commitment. Brene clung to freedom by trying to schedule as little as possible, she speaks to, but it led to total chaos and really hurting other people often. So she found that making and keeping commitments and then scheduling time for each area that is important to her led to more freedom. right? Many of us have heard of the concept of time blocking, right? And really making time. So people look at my calendar and they say, "You're so busy." I say, "No, I'm full with exactly what I want to be spending my time on." Right? And there are so many paradoxes in leadership. Some like we can only focus on purpose or profit, right? We've got to either be honest or kind. And is always available, right? You can put an and in the middle of so many of these paradoxes. And there's a great line that Brene brings up from Carl Jung, the founders of modern psychology. He espoused that paradox is one of our most valued spiritual possessions, saying that only paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. So at LGH, we love this communication tool of yes and. We can let others know we've heard them without having to immediately agree or disagree. So I really love working with you, and I need you to be at work on time. But there's so many of these paradoxes, and we just can have the courage to sit and hold them. Two things can be true at once. All right, so that's as long as I ever like to talk for without any feedback. This is not our usual MO. So I would love to give you all a chance now to have some connecting and get into some breakout rooms. So again, the core question that I referenced at the top, who am I as a leader and what do I stand on when things get hard? So in your breakout rooms, we're going to give you some prompts. You're each going to have a wonderful facilitator. Brittany has set up some fun breakout rooms for you all. And we're going to answer questions very similar to what we've been talking about. So what are your strengths and values? What does strong ground look like for you? Where have you lost ground? So again, what are these kind of questions of who am I and what's important to me and what's happened to me? And then what muscles could benefit from some intentional practice, right? So we'll do a couple of rounds. Hopefully there'll be a handful of folks in your breakout room, and you can either choose to share out yourself, or if everyone just wants to let the facilitator, we can put it back on them. But I'd love to hear from as many folks when we come back together. We're going to be in breakout rooms for about 20 to 25 minutes. And yeah, I will let Brittany bring up the rooms. And you will be able to unmute once you get in there, I promise. Thanks so much, Brittany. All right, so you should see a little invitation. We'll see you all soon. Thank you. Amazing, crushing it with the recording today, team. Well done. All right, so as folks are joining back in the room, all right, we'll let everybody get back here. They're all coming in now. Welcome, welcome. I know some folks. Hey, Scott, good to see you, sir. Appreciate all your knowledge dropping on LinkedIn lately. It's been great. All right, so folks should be able to unmute yourselves now. And like I said, anyone is welcome to share out from the conversation. We'd love to hear from as many folks as possible. We've got about 15 minutes or so. So I'd love to, well, first, let me just thank, is my screen still sharing, Larissa? My green goes away, it's funny.
Yes,
but I want to, all right, perfect. I want to thank all of our wonderful breakout room facilitators. I think I got you all on here. But just a big shout out to each of you, the vast majority of which are alumni of some sort. And yeah, we're just really grateful to each of you. Some of you I know will be able to facilitate for other sessions, but if others want to jump in and join the fray, feel free to just shoot me an email. We could use a few more folks for some other sessions, so feel free to jump in. And with that, let me see. Yeah, so let me just ask how things went. I'm going to stop my sharing so we can see each other better.
I'll go first so that I get it out of the way.
Well done, Leslie. Please jump in.
So what I really was interesting is that everyone in our group, we all have such different jobs, but yet the same kind of the same feelings around our struggles and fears So, I mean, we talked about, how we can, someone has does a lot of training. So, it's hard to prioritize the different what a new person might need to know and how to prioritize it. And then that makes them lose their confidence in themselves as a trainer, and kind of then stepping back and having to remember, that you know that they will get there, they will get there, and to learn to just be flexible and to go with the flow. um we also talked about finding the courage to speak up. Someone works in a very male dominated, this is a woman working in a very male dominated profession, and just finding the courage to speak up and afraid to make mistakes because there's more visibility on her being a woman. And then that became a conversation about paradox, because she's afraid to make these mistakes and look stupid, but yet knows that she can learn from those mistakes. So it was, kind of having that paradox in there. Just talking about different muscles that need to be strengthened, patience, giving ourselves grace, owning your mistakes and then learning from them. Um, you know, uh, Being self-aware, taking a step back to you and think about your values and remember your values, and learn from your situations. I took a lot of notes, so
Yeah, sounds like a
um,
wonderful conversation.
yeah, it really was and it was wonderful meeting just people from different, just from different perspectives. And that was another thing we
Yes.
talked about, just having understanding that others might have different perspectives than what you might have. So kind of being that, having that empathetic, not knowing, we don't know what's going on in everybody's lives. So keeping that in
Absolutely.
mind. So,
Yes,
okay.
beautiful. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate it. And that very first point too hit on one of my favorite paradoxes. We all are, it's kind of impossible to fully understand anyone else's experience, and we can each deeply relate to each other's experience simultaneously, right? It's such a paradox sometimes. So it's great. Chris, I saw you on mute. Do you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, I was in group 4 and we had Sue Ann, Angie, and Michelle in my group. Michelle enjoying southwestern Louisiana weather that we're all jealous of. Um, but yeah, what was funny about our group is we are all going through major leadership changes and restructuring at our organizations and
Mm.
how that's impacted staff and our roles as leaders in having some pretty tough conversations with employees about either restructuring or their role or their position and how things are changing and how much tension can be caused in these moments, or just the dynamics of different people working together. And so we all had very similar sort of stories and frustrations, and realized that in those moments, some of the biggest things that we need to work on to strengthen our ground is just taking a pause, taking that moment of like in taking that reaction from that person that we are engaging with, understanding where they're coming from, having empathy for their perspective. And really, we sort of wrapped up our conversation talking about LGH's 3 pillars and how those really are sort of a foundation for having those difficult conversations, focusing on being able to acknowledge that person's emotional reaction to what might
Mm.
be a very intentional business decision, but how it impacts them personally, and having respect for their feelings, providing a safe space for them to express that, and going into these conversations with very clear expectations, accountability, and sharing the why the decision was made, and why we're doing this thing that might feel deeply personal, but is intended for the betterment of the organization.
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, thank you. So wonderful. I hear plenty of paradoxes in there too. Yeah, the ands. Thank you, Anne. Speaking of ands, will Anne jump in?
Thank you. We had a wonderful conversation. I want to just really lift up our little group. And they came from very different backgrounds. And so it was really interesting though there were some similarities, we ended up like with two pastors or ministers, or we ended up also with individuals who are in the fields of either HR or working with systems to better life for others. And what was interesting that came out of that when they faced some things that were harder destabilizing, um, courage across all four of the different scenarios that were shared. Um, Being courageous, having to exercise courage and to um, make sure that they could express themselves even in those situations where it was uncomfortable. That was something that came across from all of the participants. Also, another one of the um, one of those one of the qualities was empathy, because they all mentioned that most of them mentioned that as something that helped them to step back enough to be able to see what was being experienced by the people that were causing them some angst right then. And boundaries were also important in that folks had a clear idea of what their boundaries were and what they would and
To
would
get
not
down.
accept. And so that was another one of the characteristics that was expressed across the board. I want to thank my team. They were very forthcoming and open in sharing, and we appreciated that very, very much. So thank you to my team, and thank you for the opportunity to have facilitated.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. Really appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, I hear a similar paradox that Chris spoke to as well. Sort of this, I see you and I care about you, and I care about the organization. And it can be so challenging in a formal leadership role to try and do what's best for both the people and the organization. But all we can do is our best, right? And keep transparently having that vulnerability, which again requires courage, right? To be vulnerable in that moment. So it's great. Thank you all.
I'll jump in quickly and share from my group.
Thank you.
We had a really great group. I think there was a lot of common, like many people have said, there were a lot of common threads, a lot of leaders who end up doing a lot of the work themselves when things have to happen and kind of realizing they lose connection with their staff and their team when they do that. And that really, you only become stronger as a team if the team grows, right? Not just the leader grows. So we had a lot of conversation, but I think one of the really great conversations was someone in our group had shared that for many, many years, they've been doing leadership work at their place of employment, but haven't been sort of recognized as a leader, haven't gotten that title, and sort of that feeling of, why am I doing this? Kind of wanting to throw in the towel there, but then kind of did some work, some mindfulness work, some therapy work, and kind of shifted their mindset about why they're doing the work that they're doing. And that, I'm doing this work as a leader, whether I become recognized in name with a title as the leader or not. And it's kind of changed the caliber of the work that they're doing and the way that they feel about the work that they're doing. And so we were just sort of talking about Brene Brown, it takes a lot of vulnerability. That's a huge vulnerable space and a lot of courage to kind of feel like you're doing this and you're not really rewarded or recognized for that, but that you shift your mindset to continue to be a leader and to show up in that space in that way. And I thought that was a really powerful story and a really powerful muscle to flex. So I really appreciated that. And I wanted to share that.
Amazing, Carol. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And then I just think of investing that time to care for ourselves that deeply too. It just feels so inefficient in the moment, but it's so much more effective overall, right? And that's where my invitation is often, let's go for a non-zero amount of self-care, right? If we're doing nothing, can we add a little bit? Every minute counts. And if you add that on, then just pay attention, see what the results are, what the impact is. And like you're saying, it can really level up the work that we're doing, but it's also not instant, right? It's this message that Brene was talking about. It takes fundamentals over time. So it's all paradoxes. It's all paradox. All right, who else wants to jump in? We got a couple more minutes here.
I can jump in. We are group one.
Okay, so you can go next.
I want to echo everything everyone said. It's very similar, I think, to what we discussed, but I want to share just one thing that came out of our group, which I found very interesting, is intentionally realizing when the ground beneath us is not strong, and then using empathy to understand the other side. Finding our shared purpose is the key to our strong foundation in creating a safe environment, a place to share where we can move forward together.
Beautiful. Thanks, Freya. Yeah, absolutely. Taisia, can you help me with your name?
Sure, it's Taisia.
Taisia, thank you.
Yes, no problem. Hi, everybody. So I was part of Howard's group, and we had Kate and Danny as part of our discussion. Super great to be able to network with folks that are outside of, my current industry. So that's the one thing I'm super excited about for these sessions as a whole. But as far as our discussions went, it was, we talked a lot about, the same themes that everybody else has brought up as well. The courage to have the tough conversations, leading with empathy to make sure that you're keeping that connection and not losing that trust when you're having to have those hard conversations. And then, kind of our wrap up, and Howard said it beautifully, is that, as leaders, we always feel like we have to have the answers right away. One, we have to have all the answers, but two, we have to have them right away. And I think that personally for me is something that I struggle with. So having the confidence and the courage to be able to take a beat and, sit back and really come up with that response so that it's the best one. It's not always the right one, but the best one that works for both, externally and internally. So we're not hurting our teams.
Absolutely.
So, but no, it was great. I appreciated it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, reminded me of one of our past lessons in leadership's Adam Grant's book, Think Again, and this concept of humble confidence in leadership. Brene Brown often references soft front, strong back, right? I don't have all the answers, and I know who I am and what's important to me, what our purpose is. And that, another powerful paradox, that humble confidence. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I wish we had more time. I want to hear even more, but just want to be respectful of everyone's time. So let me get back to sharing my screen here. Awesome, and move you all, there we go. Awesome, well, thank you. So just to close, we'll just sum up some of the themes here. So leadership begins with awareness and intention. And again, we so often, this is how we're starting most of our programs. We really love to do more than one session with any group or organization. Of course, in Quest, we have 10 opportunities and more. There is no courage without vulnerability. It requires courage to have that risk and emotional exposure. Strong teams are built on grounded individuals. So it's up to each of us, is where the Gandhi line comes to my mind: be the change you wish to see in the world, right? It starts with us, and that example can ripple out. There is no app for transformation, only consistent practice, right? So when we're looking at finding shortcuts or just feeling resistance to the work that it might take, just remembering that the practice is the work, right? And then when things get hard, returning to connection to ourselves, to each other, and to our strong ground. So I'll let Larissa take us out, but thank you all so much for being here together. It was an honor to get to share some of this book, and yeah, excited to have Larissa set us up for next session. Thank you all.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. I'll ask that you just continue driving slides so we don't have to do the transition. But first, thank you to Peter for kicking off the series with this conversation today. And also, I would love to acknowledge Peter for designing this year's series. So we have him to thank for inviting our other facilitators that you'll meet along the way. Thank you all for joining us today. Being here together and carving out the time in the midst of school drop-offs and work demands and all of that. We want this to be part of your strong ground, to help you sort of get your feet under you, to help you feel planted and ready for the day. So thank you for making the time, for investing in yourself, and we welcome to see you in the next few sessions. Thank you also again to the breakout room facilitators for helping to guide those small group conversations. They are always so impactful. We want to thank our series sponsors again. So thank you to CIL and CREC. Peter, if you wouldn't mind advancing. You are deeply wonderful partners to LGH. We appreciate your investment. And then our visionary sponsors, again, these are folks who invest in us all year long. We can't do this work without you. And next week, just 1 week from today, we'll be back in the Zoom room with Malik Champlain. He's actually in the Zoom room today, and we'll be guiding our conversation next week, focusing on the theme of daring leadership and mission clarity. And for those of you following along in Brené's book, that's really sort of chapters 7 to 11. So if you're wanting to read in advance, that's where we'll be. And more broadly, as we get a chance to connect with you, we always want to keep you apprised on what's going on at LGH. We are very busy over the next few months and hope that you can join us not only for our events, but for some of our programs as well. First, we're really excited to share that Quest 2026 is our largest cohort ever. A couple of you are in the room with us today. We'll be launching their first full day workshop on March 19th. And although this class is full for this year and we have a wait list, we're already starting to fill spots for 2027. So please do reach out if you're wanting to join your own Quest journey for next year. Our executive orientation program for leaders who are new to the region or new to their roles. We'll have 2 cohorts this year, both a spring and a fall cohort, both of which are filling quickly. So we invite you to share that with leaders who are looking for new and deepened connections in our community. As always, we're recruiting for our Leaders on Board program. If you're looking for ways to sort of give and lean in to the incredible nonprofit organizations doing work in our region, we will train you in nonprofit board governance and help connect you with nonprofits who are looking for new board members. We are constantly enrolling for that. And then if you're interested in exploring leadership workshops, retreats, or series for your teams, please reach out to us because our robust consulting and training programming can really be customized for your team needs. So there are a lot of resources that can be found. We encourage you to find us on our website, but also our signature annual event is coming up this June. Throughout the series this month, we'll actually be able to share more details, but for now, we ask that you save the date of June 3rd. We're actually selecting our community honorees within the next week or two, so we'll be following up with additional dates, but this is a true opportunity for us to gather as a community and celebrate sort of traditionally unsung community leaders who really promote the values that we promote here at Leadership Greater Hartford. So stay tuned for more information on that, but we hope to see you all with us at Parkville Market on June 3rd. And so thank you again for joining us this morning. We do send out surveys after each session. We really welcome your feedback. We often refine the design of this day based on what you share with us. So please do take a few minutes to share your feedback and your ideas. It's also a way for you to sort of commit to some of your key learning moments from today. And so thank you again for participating in today's program. I hope that you've been inspired like I have. I think one of the things I'm taking away is to remember that strong teams are built by grounded people. So we invite you to ground yourselves, be brave enough to be vulnerable, stay connected, and then do the work. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all so much. Thanks, Lily. Take care. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you all.
Be well.